I just got home from a rough job interview and realized my dress had split open a few inches along the back seam, completely exposing my thong-clad buttocks. What is the worst interview you've ever had? I nailed an interview a few months ago, or at least thought I did. As I was walking out and saying my goodbyes, I failed to notice there was a stair at the end of the hallway. I tripped out of my heels, which went flying, and crashed into a desk, knocking everything over on it. Landed with feet up in the air, giving everyone surrounding the area a nice little upskirt exposing thigh highs and a thong. I collected my shoes, said thank you for the opportunity, and walked out barefoot. Had an interview at Home Depot once. I went to the wrong Home Depot and apparently was interviewed for a management position with the HR rep thinking I was someone else who was running late. Interview lasted 30 minutes. I was offered the job, and when she called me John and not my name, I corrected her. She gave me a confused look, then said, "I'll call you tomorrow to give you your schedule." Never heard from her again. I did however hear from the location that I had missed my interview at, saying not to bother rescheduling. It took me a good 2-3 hours to figure out what the heck happened. The end result definitely sounds rough. On the bright side, your interviewing skills are apparently top notch. Did a yearly evaluation with blood all over my forehead once. Didn't notice I'd cut my finger. Didn't notice I'd smeared it on my face. Still employed, though. Employer Tadawaki demonstrated extreme toughness and focus, ignoring the blood coming out of his head as he worked diligently. I had an interview once, and before I went in I realized that my pants, which I had tailored days before, had completely split at the seam down the back. I noticed because I caught my reflection and saw that my shirt tails were sticking out. I was too far from home to change. The pants were black and I had a pair of black shorts in my trunk, so I put the shorts on underneath and tried my best to not show anyone my backside. This was all after I spent about 20 minutes walking around a Walmart with my butt hanging out. My worst interview ever was for a position at Paramount Studios. It started when I walked directly into the person's office thinking it was her secretary's office. She was on the phone and looked at me like I had just done something very rude. She asked that I go wait outside for 15 minutes. So I'm sitting outside on a bench when it starts to rain. I try to find some cover but still get pretty wet. When the 15 minutes was up I went back inside, but she was still on the phone, so I waited just outside her door. It was the winter, and although the winter isn't too cold in LA, they had the heat blasting. I'm wearing a wool suit and I'm covered in rainwater and I start sweating profusely because of the heat. And I'm standing there waiting for this lady to get off the phone, and I hear her talking to her friend about how she's thinking about dumping her boyfriend because he sweats too much. A minute later she gets off the phone and I go in for the interview, and I'm sweating my butt off, and the fact that I know she doesn't like sweaty people makes me sweat even more. So I sit down in the chair opposite her, and because of the way the office is oriented the setting sun is coming in the window behind her, and I end up spending the interview either squinting at her in an attempt to make eye contact or staring at the floor. By this point it's clear just how uncomfortable I am, and she is not impressed. There was nothing I could do to rectify my image. I had prepared a list of questions beforehand to sound intelligent and engaging, but she dismissed all of them as irrelevant. Even my effort at small talk fell flat. Me: "Oh, I see you have a Canadian flag on your shelf. Are you Canadian?" "I am." Her: "Number: I've never been. My friend got me that." Me: "Oh, well you should go sometime. It's really beautiful." Her: stares at me in silent disgust. I don't really remember much after that. I assume I was swept out of the office by a flood of sweat and desperation. Yeah, the problem in that interview wasn't you. I think you had a lucky escape. It was March and I had applied for a job within my university. The interviewer asked me to show up in May for an interview via email. I replied and double checked, "Are you sure you mean Thursday, May whatever?" ? To which she replied, "Yep. See you then." When I show up, she tells me I'm a month late. When I dispute it, she tells me there is no possible way she's wrong and that she keeps every email. She finds mine, and an oh crap look crosses her face. Needless to say, the position had been filled. Given her skills, I'm glad I didn't get the job. Try to be optimistic. Perhaps the dress split shortly before you got home and was perfectly fine during your interview. I was called by an insurance agency, told that they liked my resume, and invited me to a job interview. When I got there, they looked at my resume, told me that I was in no way qualified, and then chastised me for wasting their time. I explained that they had invited me, and that they had already seen my resume. I also mentioned that the job title was never mentioned, but I assumed they need someone in IT, my major and all past experience on my resume. They basically told me that they are too busy to be bothered to actually read resumes, and that I should have known that they were looking for agents. For your information, it was in Sphere Insurance Solutions. Well, I guess this interview isn't bad exactly, but it's different. So freshman year of college, some people came to a class offering an internship opportunity and I filled out the contact info. I get called for an interview, which was a group interview, odd, with about 5 other people. Then I finally found out the name of the company, College Works Painting. The year before that, I'd helped somebody doing this internship program. I had to go door to door offering free paint consultation or something. Cops stopped us in the first neighborhood, the second neighborhood, the third neighborhood, surrounded our car with 3 cop cars once. The scumbag company didn't get us the proper paperwork for soliciting and we could have gotten charged with a felony for it. So in the middle of the interview, I tell them this story. I tell them how College Works Painting is a scam, a shady business, a bunch of crooks who will throw you under the bus, and I leave. A few days later, I get a call. They liked my interview and wanted to offer me a chance to work for them. Whoa. Hep, sounds like Cutco. I think I almost have you beat. I was walking to the student union last semester to go through my co-op internship interviews. I had my suit on and was going through a mental checklist to make sure I had everything. Notebook, check. Applications, relevant documents, check. Teeth. Frick, I should take a moment to explain here. Because of a childhood accident and subsequent complications, I am missing one of my 2 front teeth. I normally wear an Invisalign retainer that has a fake tooth stuck in it, so usually people don't notice it's missing. Anyway, I realize I completely forgot to put the retainer in and I'll be late if I go back and get it, so I just soldiered on. When my interviews came, I, a nervous interviewee to begin with, had no idea whether I should draw attention to this and if so how, so I just didn't comment on it. Neither did anyone in any of the 5 interviews I had. I didn't get any offers. TLDR. Forgot tooth. I was interviewing for a position as a technology editor for my college paper. Simple gig, low pay, but interesting as an engineering student with a knack for writing. I walk into the room and there are 2 guys in there, grad students. One of them looks Indian Middle Eastern. I couldn't really tell. The other guy was white. Anyway, as they're introducing themselves they say we are Brian and Jim Habib or something like that. 1 total white guy name and 1 total international student name. We go along the interview super casually and everything's going well. We talk about my writing samples and my interest in the content, and then they call a wrap up and we all start shaking hands. I look each one in the eye and I'm proud of myself cause I've made it personal. Remembered each one's name all the way through the interview and even called them by name several times each. This is something they tell you to do in those interview coaching seminar things you go to in college. Anyway, as I'm just about to leave, the secretary lady from outside the office pokes her head in and says, "Brian, you have a phone call," and the motherfucking brown looking guy says, "Okay, thanks." I almost crap myself. I must have been beat red. I looked like a total racist douche, just assuming that the white guy is brown. Turns out the white guy is from Lebanon or something like that and the other dude is from Southern California. Did not get the gig and I even had an upper division class with the white guy a year or so later. TLDR. I got all subliminally racist at an interview. That just made me cringe. However, I kind of feel like it was an honest mistake. Interviewing for a scholarship with the local Rotary Club about 4 years ago, when it became rather hostile over my ACT score. "Why didn't you take the ACT more than once?" "Well sir, I was more than happy with the first score I got. You could have done better the second time." "Yes sir, possibly, but once again I was more than satisfied. I think you should have taken it twice." "I respect that opinion. So, why didn't you?" At this point, I got angry. Because I got a 30 and I have a 3.9 GPA. IT's more than good enough. At this point the other 4 interviewers cut in. I got the scholarship. Back in late 2008 I had just moved back to the US and was all full of high morals and intent on saving the world. The economy was crashing around me, but honestly after living in a third world country, I didn't quite grasp the extent to which it was really falling apart. Living in California with such a big economy also added to my sense that we could never be in job trouble. I had been sending resumes out like mad, which is really a job in itself these days, and looking for that dream job. Finally I get a call back from a great organization that does work that I find compelling and they are starting a project that is spot on for me. I talked to them on the phone for a while and we really hit it off. I like them. They like me. It seems perfect. We set up an in-person interview in a week. The place is a bit of a drive away, but in a place I would love to live. This all sounds amazing. Interview day comes. I get up early, iron my clothes and get myself all ready. I have a simple meal to ready myself for fighting some traffic and leave. As I am getting close I just get this uneasy feeling. I try to shake it but I can't. I pull off the highway at the exit and I'm loving the area. I am driving down what is essentially a residential street and passing through an intersection when another car enters and we hit each other. I realize that the other intersection were 4-way stops, but this one isn't. The car that entered the intersection didn't have to stop. I'm technically at fault. I can't believe my luck, but I'm 2 blocks away so I call the interviewers and tell them I had a minor fender bender and I'll be 10 minutes late. They are super nice about it. I show up and there is lots of weird dodging of interview and giving me info on other programs. I can tell something is up. I ask to speak to the woman who offered me the interview and they finally bring me into her office. She explains that she loves my resume and I'm perfect for the position, but funding has just been cut and they can't staff it anymore. I am crushed. TLDR I drove 2 hours to get a dream job and then got in a car accident, just to find there is no job anymore. This one time I needed a job badly and went to tons of interviews. One was obviously for a scam company that sold knives. IDK who needs a $200 knife that can cut through a shoe. A lot of the interview was them making me give out contact information of people that I know so they could scam them. I gave fake numbers. The entire process was 2 hours of them weeding out a large group of high school age kids until they had narrowed it down to me and another girl. They offered the job to both of us. I acted like I wanted the job, but never contacted them again. So many boring videos and quizzes and mini interviews. Worst interview experience of my life. I should have just got up and left but I didn't have the balls. Sounds like Cutco or whatever. I interviewed at Home Depot once and every 2-3 minutes the HR manager interviewing me would get interrupted and leave the room. This happened 15 times. I became so frustrated that when she came back the last time, I got up and said that I didn't want to work for a company with such little professionalism and walked out the door. Little did you know, they were testing your patience as a manager. Had an interview a week ago. By an interview, I actually mean a series of 7 interviews back to back to back to back too. Anyways, 7 interviews jammed into 4.5 hours going through a total of 14 people. As you might imagine, I was a little wiped afterwards. Fast forward to Friday. 2 days later, the HR guy calls me and says, "Hey, I just wanted to let you know I've talked with the department and we'll be extending you an offer on Monday. I'm going to be out of the office for the holiday week, but the guy who is covering for me will call you with the official offer and I wanted to let you know ahead of time." He follows up with an email saying the same thing. Obviously, I'm thrilled. Monday rolls around and I don't get a call. Tuesday checks in and no call, until I check my email right around 5 PM to find a form rejection note from the company. Worst interview I've ever had? Yeah, not for the interview itself, but man, talk about a sucker punch from a company. Edited lowlights to avoid a wall of text. Panicked. Turned up a day too early, on the correct day, gave all the wrong answers to questions as the agency had given me the wrong job description. Throat dried up. Voice became similar to that of Beaker from the Muppets and also managed to imply that I was learning German to understand fetish websites. Funnily enough, I didn't get the job. I had a phone interview for a big bank grad scheme. It wasn't going well and the interviewer hadn't cared that I could hear the rest of her floor coughing and sneezing in the background. So she asks, give me an example of a time when someone questioned your integrity. I replied instantly, that's rich coming from you guys. There was a long pause and I didn't get the job. A day later they were fined £40 million for mis-selling investment bonds to people in care homes who had no hope of living to reap any benefits. Frick 'em. I'm a finance major at Florida International University and had an interview for an internship at IBM. The interview went great except for one question. Can you tell me what a 14% increase of $56.96 has had to do that in my head? No calculator allowed. In hindsight, it wasn't that bad, but the pressure of a panel of 3 ex-Wall Street employees staring me down made me crack. I like these kinds of problems. Round up to 57, then split the problem into 2 parts. 57x4 and 57x10. You can do both pretty easily and get 228 and 570 equals 798. Divide by 100 to get 7.98. I was trying to change my career from mechanical engineering to web development in the early 2000s after the bubble had popped. So interviews were hard to come by without much in the way of credentials. I did well on the interview and we were saying our goodbyes and had just shook hands and a little high-pitched fart snuck out that I had been holding in the entire duration of the interview. I turned bright red and the interviewer made a little joke and I got the heck out of there. Got the job and worked there for about 2 years. Probably the worst. I went for my first interview at a tux shop when I was 16 years old. I sat with my legs crossed for the duration of the interview. I didn't realize I lost all feeling control of my right leg and when I stood up, I fell to the floor. The manager helped me stand up and I fell again. I had to remain on the floor for about a minute, massaging my leg. Ultimately, 2 workers from the front of the store helped carry me out like a wounded soldier. Years ago I was applying for an administrative position at an insurance company. I didn't have, nor needed, a lot of experience for the job. You'd get paid training for 4 weeks and it was all entry level. I had worked mostly summer jobs, the last one being at an ice cream parlor from April till the 5th of September days a week. In other words, the entire season. So, I'm at the interview and it's clear these people didn't prepare crap. They had my application, my CV and everything, but hadn't been bothered to even glance at them before the interview. I'm sitting there, in front of them, for 15 minutes waiting for them 3 middle-aged, clearly cranky women, to read my CV and ask some questions. They asked where I lived, which they just read, and general stuff. I'm trying to keep polite, making small talk, subtly reminding them of the CV where I listed some of those things as well. But the more time passed, the dumber the questions got. The one that topped the cake, by then I already knew I'd rather die than work for them, was when they asked me why I only worked at the parlor over the summer. I looked at them with a poker face and said, they found out that ice cream was less popular in freezing weather conditions. Now, I know that there are some parlors that stay open all year, but there are very few that do, and this wasn't one of them. By the name of the company, well known in the area, they could have guessed as well. I got a Death Star and we all knew then and there that even if I wanted the job, I would not get it. When the interview was over, all 3 of them sat there and asked how I thought the interview went. So I mentioned I didn't think it went that well. Oh, how come me? You guys expect candidates to prepare and do some research of the company, but you came in here and took your sweet time to read my CV as you didn't even know my name, while I sat there waiting. Besides that, I was asked some of the dumbest questions in my life. I'm sure you don't think I'm suited for the job, but I do not think you guys deserve the positions you're in either, as you have no idea about any kind of job. Side note, they couldn't properly explain the function I was applying to either. I walked out unemployed, yet with a total frick yeah feeling. I don't think I've ever been that glad not to get a job. Sounds like some prospective co-workers got stuck on short notice with interview duty and had about 5 minutes notice, which kind of says a bit about the company and its way of running. I had a phone screen for a coveted position at a large pharmaceutical company. I had totally forgotten about it and ended up being fairly drunk by the time they called. Somehow drunk me impressed someone because I got the job. I had one when I was in college and I was taking a nap and the phone woke me up. It took me 5 minutes to fully wake up, but I still nailed it and got the job. I was running late to an interview due to bad directions from MapQuest. Yes, that long ago, and ended up being like 40 minutes late. I had just graduated college and was desperate for a job in IT, so I was pretty freaked out at this point. I had called ahead and let them know, apologizing profusely as I did so. They said it was fine, not to worry. So I get there, and I pretty much get shoved a ton of papers and they let me know I need to do an application and aptitude test. Not a big deal. I sit down and fill out the forms. About 30 minutes in I get handed 2 more forms I need to fill out. At this point I've only met the receptionist, haven't seen a soul from the department I'm applying to. All these forms take about an hour and a half to fill out, and I'm feeling like crap. Hand sting, eyes beading, etc. I then get taken into a small conference room and they hand me more forms to fill out. I give the receptionist a "why are you crapping me" look, but she just hands me a pen and leaves. 2 more hours, and these are the dumbest forms and questions you've seen. Demographic data about myself and my education, basic math and science problems, personality, etc. By this point I'm seeing double. No one comes check on me during this period, so after I get it all done I leave the conference room and wander around a bit before finding the receptionist. She happily takes my forms and lets me know the employees I was supposed to meet with are no longer available. It's like 5:30 PM at this point. She'll file my forms and call me back when they can reschedule. So I leave, tired, drained, and completely discouraged. I take a quick peek behind me as I leave, just to see the receptionist throw all the paperwork I filled out into a garbage can. TLDR, was late to an interview due to bad directions, was forced to spend 4 hours fill out nonsense forms, just to have them thrown out. I never heard back from them. You could have sued them, possibly different where you live, but I believe a potential employer has to keep your information on file for 1 year after you submit it. Here is mine. Still pisses me off. Not really a job interview, but when I was in high school I wanted to join PALS, a program that high school students would go to junior high and elementary schools to play with the children. I had to be interviewed by 2 members of PALS to be accepted in. Well, I get there, and it's this guy and girl, who I believe were a couple, sitting on a couch, and right off the bat it gets weird. The first question was, if you had to kill any animal on Earth, what would it be and why? I had no idea how to answer this, so I just went with a chicken, because they are delicious. Wrong, the answer should have been you wouldn't kill any animal. They're all special in God's eyes. I was a little dumbfounded, but it got worse. The girl asked me if I had a girlfriend, and when I said yes, both of them stared me directly in my eyes, and the girl, with a dress on, who had her legs crossed, uncrossed them slowly and then crossed them again, just to see if I would try to look up her dress. And of course I looked. I am a goddamn warm-blooded American. And they had a little check-off list and I got a little mark and a disappointing TSK look by both of them. Some other ridiculous questions were asked, but I can't remember them. Obviously, I didn't join PALS. Frick PALS. TLDR. Went to an interview and the lady uncrossed her legs slowly to see if I would look up her dress. All porno style, but without the sex and more of the bad looks. Wrong. The answer should have been you wouldn't kill any animal. They're all special in God's eyes. I love a good story where the pure awkwardness is conveyed over the internet. I cringed when I read that line. I was having a great interview for a network admin job at a company my brother-in-law worked at, so I had the inside lane. I was well qualified, hit it off with the supervisor, as well as the other guys I'd be working with. After about an hour or so of good interviewing, tour of the data center, etc, I met with the director of IT. I figure things are going pretty well if I am getting to meet him. So him and I talk for about 30 minutes. Everything is still going good. Then he asks me, are you the kind of person who works well under close supervisor, or do you prefer to get a task or project and work alone? I replied, it really doesn't matter to me. I can work equally well in a close team environment or by myself. I'm committed and dedicated to the task at hand, so I am sure I can get it done on my own just as well. Jackpot answer, right? Not so much. He comes back with, well, what I meant was, do you prefer to closely supervised or on your own? I know where he is going with this. but it truthfully doesn't matter to me. So I tell him the truth with a charming smile. I really don't have a preference either way. I can work in either environment with the same success. I have demonstrated experience working from home, by myself, as well as working very closely with my immediate supervisor on day-to-day tasks. At this point, his annoyance is starting show, but I am being truthful and I'm not sure what answer to give him. I'm trying to figure out, what does he want to hear? So before he responds again, I, kind of forcefully, tell him, listen, if you give me the football and tell me to score, I'll do it, no questions asked. If you tell me you want me to score a TD by running the ball, I'm Jim Brown. If you want me to throw it to Jerry Rice in the end zone, I'll be your Joe Montana. You let me know how you want me to get things done, and I will. It truly doesn't matter to me. So after a 5-10 second pause, he's giving me a fairly hard look. I get the thanks for coming in, we appreciate your time, blah blah blah. As you can probably guess, I did not get the job. So the moral of the story is, make sure you answer the question with something they're looking for, even if you have to make something up. TLDR. Montana to Rice doesn't always score a touchdown. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.